like covering my clock. Okay. You said you kind of booked out till 4. That's cool. But,
Yeah.
also as long as we need to go, I don't want to go over that time. But also, it's like, I don't know if people even find 3D rendering interesting for 2 hours. I have no idea. So,
I'm
uh,
sure.
yeah, I'm sure they will. That's right, too. And then I guess even for the audience, like I have no idea who the audience of this is going to be. I say like, the digital spaces YouTube channel already and like my following are really 3D artists in general. That is like kind of my audience, but also, like who cares? And who knows what audience this can like open up to or discover through this or who wants this or whatnot too. But I guess, is there any audience that you particularly like, um, I don't know, are trying to target or anything like for your business or so?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We so there's two things. We target typically real estate developers. I like to call them visionary real estate developers for vision and path, right? But I started something called the 3D Studio Launchpad. I believe it was last year around September, I believe.
Whoa, yeah. Can I Google that? What is, or look that up? What is that?
You probably could. It was a school community. I created all kinds of courses and just stuff around starting your own 3D studio because I saw a lot of people were starting 3D studios. And I knew we were headed more into the VR side of things and technology. So I thought, let me just offload it all.
Oh.
So it's funny
Mhm.
because people who were, I think we got up to like 100 users in the school community in like 2 months or something like that. It was crazy. And then I realized that a lot of people were either architects who were trying to get out of architecture and go into 3D,
Right.
or were students who were figuring out what they wanted to do, or they were people who had worked in 3D rendering pretty much all their career, and they were just trying to start their own sort of 3D studio.
Right. Which, I mean, I would say, I mean, this, 3D rendering is very rare in the United States too. We're like a rare breed even doing it or so. So did you find that on that program that there were a lot of Americans joining, or did you find that a lot of people were not American?
Most of them were not American.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, most of them were not American. I don't think Americans know about this space like
No,
that.
not at all. It's so weird though, but that's actually something that got me into it. Was it was
Yeah.
more of a niche thing or so too, and it was like, hey, can we bring this to America? What if we could train people more? Better visualization coming from architects can maybe lead to better designs. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough one to build though,
Yeah.
to change our whole culture.
It's funny you talk about the origins. Like for you, yeah, I guess for the both of us, since we both went to Ball State, I kind of forgot about that. We both went to the same.
Mhm. Yeah, we went to the
School.
same university, studied the same thing with the same name, and then we
Yeah.
got into the same industry and are building similar products. It's like, how did we? Yeah, what is this?
Crazy. Some of the same professors over there, and so you know, did you have Deeg and all those guys?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Deeg like taught us how to draw trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, the master sketcher. But my favorite was I had Daniel Woodfin, and he's
Okay.
the one that like taught us the timeless way of building, and Christopher Alexander, and that was actually my favorite studio of all time. And there was zero computers too, because that was what is that first year or so you do no computers, or maybe that was even second year, but he was still like no rendering. We're doing everything by hand. Um, which is kind of ironic. That was my favorite studio, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny because I used to cheat a little bit. I used to still use SketchUp and all that stuff.
Oh
I didn't
yeah, that's right. Mhm.
because it's funny because I met an architect my second year, actually my first year, and I was interning with him, and I realized they were using Revit and they were using AutoCAD, and I'm like, look, they're using this out in the field. Like,
Right.
why would I not learn how to use it? It just didn't.
Mhm.
It never made sense to me, so I just kind of rebelled against that. But I can remember third year, I ended up doing an independent study for Revit, and
Mhm.
so happy I did that because the first job I got, I didn't know they were going to do this, but actually the second job I got, that actually was paying me a decent, anything decently okay. They asked me on my interview on spot to create something in Revit, and if I would not have done that, I probably would not have gotten that opportunity.
That sounds about right. I remember my first internship. I'm like, first day, get there early, energized, coffee, excited, nervous. The architect that I'm going to be working with all summer, like, comes to my desk and is like, "Hey, tell me like what softwares you know." And I'm like, "Oh, I know Photoshop, I know Illustrator, I know Rhino." And he's like, "Okay, we use none of those here. Do you know AutoCAD?" And it's like, "Yeah, I know that too." Okay, great. It's like, what did I just do at university? You
Right.
know?
It's like it almost seems to me as though we should have just studied Revit like half of the time,
Right.
just because of the sheer demand for it once we got
Sh-
out of school.
Right.
I got out of college in what, 2017? I graduated a bit early, but I got out December in 2017. And they had already told us the job market was going to be kind of weird when we got out. And the only thing people were asking is, hey, can you use Revit? That was like the main question. That was like the second question besides, are you like, can you work in the US?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You authorized to work in the US. Do you know Revit? Sure. Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's funny. It was in that sort of exploration in college that I fell in love with just digital tools like, SketchUp. I don't really know much about 3ds Max and any of those. People were using Rhino for some rendering stuff, I think. Um, but yeah, I was creating everything in SketchUp, and then I would take it in Photoshop. Like you said, I was a Photoshop king. Like they would come to me like, anyone had a question with Photoshop, I know the hotkeys. Like that
Where'd
was,
you
yeah,
learn that?
I just learned it on the fly. I think second, third year, I just got really interested in just being the one that created all the graphics and, the presentation and stuff like that. So, you know how we had our groups and our studios and stuff, and we would do projects together. And so it was typically my job to bring it all together and make it look really nice.
Hey, makes sense then why you then make a career out of that too.
Yeah,
Moving on.
good thought. Yeah.
Although Photoshop, is it still used? Who's using Photoshop? Are you still using it?
I use it, I still use it, man. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
funny because um I think Figma was just becoming a thing when I was graduating
Okay.
from my master's program. And I was scared to use it because I just thought it was going to be so much of a learning curve
Mm.
from what I from Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Figma, I mean, it didn't take really long to learn,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but that's what I use primarily now. But Photoshop, I still use it for some like photo merging stuff, and if I wanted to
Okay.
just get creative.
Wait, you're saying you use Figma to like add entourage?
No, so I don't really. It's funny because like I don't really do much of the design stuff anymore. But I use Figma for like graphics. If I'm trying to go in and create something for a pitch deck or for one of our,
Yeah.
present materials, or if I'm trying to create a presentation in general, I'll
Right.
go in Figma and create it. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
But back in college when you're using Photoshop, that was like, was that more of the matte painting and like adding entourage,
Yeah,
adjusting light and all, like, didn't really
all
render lighting that great. We're gonna paint it in.
yeah. We paint the shadows in.
Yeah.
We go in there and change the lighting, like you said, all that good stuff. But then sometimes I would create our presentation materials in there as well. So I would create the
Right.
board also.
Sure.
It was only, I think, junior year that I learned how to use Illustrator and
Okay.
Illustrator. Then what's the other one? InDesign, right?
Mm-hmm.
InDesign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Design was kind of saved my life junior senior year. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Then that's the difference between having a 2 GB massive Photoshop
Yeah.
document that's 30,000 pixels long or
Right.
something. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah. And then
um,
don't try to go in there and make like a book or a
yeah.
presentation
Right.
cooked.
That's right. But hey,
Yeah.
that, because personally, when I started doing 3D work independently, and really when I started digital spaces, that was like 2018. I because I was working at a visualization studio in Los Angeles for a few years before I started my own. And they were
You
still
work.
Photoshop heavy. And I think that's actually how I got the job. Because my first
Yeah.
day there, I didn't even know 3ds Max. And some of the
Yeah.
people there were like, "How'd you get hired here? Like, what are you doing here?" And it's like, well, I'm really good at Photoshop. They hired me for that, learned 3ds
Yeah.
Max. But when I left there and started my own thing, I ditched Photoshop entirely. It's like where I'm going full 3D, that's where it's at, going hyper real. And it kind of
Yep.
helps the feedback cycle too, because it's like working in two programs, rendering, bringing in Photoshop, making the changes, saving it out, delivering to the client. Like, yuck, I just want to go straight from the render engine to the client or so. But I guess when did that, because I also feel like it is more old school to be even painting in Photoshop these days. I wonder when that switch happened.
Well, for me, I started really getting serious about 3D in 2019 or 2018 as well. I was working for Meticulous, and I'll never forget, we were losing projects back to back. They were great designers, they just didn't have any projects out of the ground. And so I came to them and said, hey, and I was already doing some 3D stuff for the previous firm I worked for, but they didn't know. I was just kind of doing it on my own time. So I was like, hey, if I learn this Lumion thing for a few months, can I do like, 3 or 4 other projects and can I charge this in my time? They were
Right.
like, "Yeah, whatever."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did it. And that was around the time that I started learning sort of texture. I started learning how to really put the entourage in there and how to save time as well in rendering. Because like what Photoshop was at that time, like back in college, was like a time saver. Like you
Mm.
used it to shortcut a lot of things. Like you could make the image look exactly like you want it to look without having to do the real work. You know
Right.
what I mean?
In 3D. That's right. Like grab an image online, lasso it
Right.
out, paint it in, boom. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Collage it in.
Yep. Change colors, change, all types
Right.
of stuff. If you were good enough, if you knew the tools.
Right.
That was around the time that I made the switch because I realized that if you have any sort of revision, you're cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because then you have to change it in the software and then take it back into Photoshop. And then you have the issue with exporting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to export views. And my computer was not as strong. Now I have a Mac Pro and all that good stuff. Like, back then, I had this super loud, like hard drive that was just always breathing so hard, like for its life. And it would go out and it would come out of the socket sometimes, and I would lose all my work. So it's like I had to figure out a way to do this stuff in 3D space and not have to sort of move it back around. Like you said, the workflow becomes clunky.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, uh, these days too, I guess, like, I mean, just what you were saying about how it was a tool that made it easier. And,
yeah,
you really could just like go grab something from another project, cut it out, bring it in, collage it in. Um, I mean, that just tells me right there. It's just like, of course, the AI workflow is going to be king again because
okay,
that's basically what you're going to be doing, but because it's not in 3D, you don't need to go through all that work to model something and place it
yeah,
perfectly, render out that view. We're kind of back to collage, you
yeah.
know, but it's just not going to be Photoshop.
Right. Well, no, it's funny because like what I use Photoshop now for is now like, the generative collage stuff.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so and it might not be in renderings. Actually, I've used it in renderings before.
Hmm.
Uh to touch something up, maybe for a marketing thing that, I want to do and
Hmm.
maybe add another extra car or something like this.
Right.
In Photoshop, that generative AI feature of Photoshop is probably one of the best I've seen.
Hmm. Oh, great. Interesting. And I guess it already fits in the workflow there too. And I was talking to an artist recently who was showing me some of his work, and he was doing like whatever Disney World is, what is that, theme park design
Mhm.
stuff and like conceptual renderings for new theme park rides. And one of them was like this like tomb, and they were gold chests, and it was kind of like this Aztecan kind of feel. And he was using the generative to get these like great models of these like stone sculptures and things that he's like placing all around, because he was like, how the heck am I going to 3D model those? It's like these are so unique and different. And he was just like, and there are these little accent pieces, but it blew my mind because it was like, whoa, I didn't realize. I would have been convinced that that was completely done by hand, and
Oh,
just done by him as an artist. And no.
Well, it's funny you say that because the last project we just worked on, the Ritz-Carlton's residences, Boston South Station Tower with Hines, so we worked with an interior designer on that one. Williams Papadopoulos design. I mean, they are amazing interior designers to the point where when we started the project, I was a bit nervous. You see their other work and you see everything is branded,
Mhm.
and I'm, geez, like, how are we going to find all these, how are we going to find all these models? You see art on the wall, you see like, all of
Sure.
the very intricate
So this is like
material.
marketing renders then,
Yeah, like in a sense, for their penthouses. And so
right?
they designed the penthouses and we brought them to life in 3D. And one of the things we did is the sculptures or the installations that they put in the units. There were probably seven very distinct ones. We would take the image and put it in an image to AI or image to 3D model, and create a 3D model of it, and it looked amazing. Like
Wow.
yeah, it was awesome. And then some of the art pieces we put in there as well were by real artists. Like, and so we would take the image, create the frame. Maybe we would create the frame, but sometimes the AI would just generate it on its own.
Hmm. And it was even good enough to then just like place right into 3D, render it. You're good to
You-
go. Yeah, rock and roll.
Textures and all. Yeah.
Man, it's crazy that like, you say that you graduated in like 2017. I was 2015. So we're a decade in and already
Oh
I
man.
feel like we're old. It's like there's all these new tools already and it's like, man, I just spent all this time figuring out the last tools. Now there are all
Yeah.
these new ones and holy cow, like this is moving fast.
Yeah. Well, and I always say this, I've been saying this since back then. I hope it happens to architecture faster than, you know, I hope it happens to architecture as well. Um, some people are making some things happen. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Cove Tool and Sandeep over there at Cove.
No, I'm not
Uh,
familiar. Cove?
Cove, yeah, Cove Tool. So I met her. We both spoke at a conference or an event in Atlanta. They're based in Atlanta. And that's what she's looking to do. She's built an AI um, enabled architecture firm, and it's really cool the stuff that they're doing over there. But I know people are not happy with her. She doesn't even have to tell me for me to know that.
Hmm.
Um, Architecture has been so archaic and slow to move, especially when it comes to technology, and that's really why I left architecture.
Mm.
Is because I didn't see the innovation happening. And I knew things were gonna change fast. I knew it. And it's happening right now. But like I just hope it's not as disruptive to people's jobs that I think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Because we're already seeing that, there are certain like pre-construction or pre-development tools that um, architects, designers use to sort of imagine buildings and understand like context, understand all these things, right? And these are things that take architects weeks or months to do. And it kind of even bleeds into the development side, right? To where your junior analyst has to pull, some numbers, demographic numbers, and things like this. And all of that stuff is being done by like one tool. So that's either going to go into the real estate developer's hands and they're just going to do all of it and we're not going to need to bill you those hours. Or um, people are just going to be obsolete in some ways.
Yeah, I guess too, it's like, I mean, there's lots of things in architecture that are a waste of time that we do.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing that hurts for me at least is doing work and then having the client change it and then you throw it away because
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
hey, my work is good
Yeah.
and ouch. It's like it would be great as if every hour of work I put into something lasts forever. That to
Yeah.
me is like the dream, say. But
Yeah.
that happens very rarely in architecture.
Yeah.
It's all just like it's a process. It's this iterative
Yeah.
process. And so I guess
Right.
if we could make it where that tedious work and the details and things that, we're just like clicking and clicking and clicking to get done that just change by your next meeting. They change by that afternoon. That would be good, if an AI could just like handle that, so we can just go through like iterations a bit
Yeah,
faster. But then I think, well, if we have an excess of architecture, well, then we need the construction world to keep up,
yeah,
because like if we're going to be able to design things faster and iterate faster, okay, but if there's not enough people actually building these things,
yeah.
then what? Then it is like there's too many architects, because we can generate these things faster than we can build them, and then
Yeah.
it's going to be like a surplus of architects or something, So
Yeah.
we,
Well, my
but
fear is because, one out of, and this is a random sort of like from the top kind of assumption is like one out of every three or four real estate developers wanted to be an architect.
oh,
They would,
sure, okay,
you know what I'm saying? And so my thought is like, if they get their hands on those tools and they actually work,
hmm
and it's that easy to just put together iterations, like, and look at the numbers while you're doing that in another tab, why would they not just do that themselves?
right,
That's
which they will.
the question. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
Path of least
and
resistance. Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
not to least resistance. Like, I don't even
Right,
have to give this to anyone else. Like,
right,
I can iterate myself. Like, and I get the
right,
thrill of designing, right?
right.
Even though I have no formal education about it,
hmm
even though I don't know, I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to so many things that architects understand about the built environment.
Sure.
They're looking to, if it's legal, they will do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're saying that we need an architecture lobby in Congress that saves us or something.
I
Yeah.
think we already have one. I think we already have one in AIA.
Yeah,
I
that's
just think
true.
I think they have too much of a chokehold on the
hmm
industry to where, it's not innovating. That's the issue.
Sure.
And so my thought is AIA, you like, yeah, I can't say I really understand what's going to happen. Well, so,
Thinking too, I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to build things.
yeah,
And what I really enjoyed about visualization is you're able to build things way faster than
yeah,
traditional architecture. And I can work on more projects than a traditional architect. We're coming in, we're doing things quick, shipping it out. We can touch a lot of things, building a lot. But, I have to say the thing that really, and maybe now after doing this for a decade plus, it's really dawning on me is like, it's ones and zeros that are sitting on a server somewhere and
yeah,
they light up a pixel on a screen that people view for no more than if you get 3 minutes by somebody looking at a rendering, that's like, holy cow, like they spent 3 minutes looking at that. And that one kind of hits me because it's like, well, man, there's so much work put in just for 3 minutes where I would love to build things again too, where I almost wonder, would would architects get back to actually being builders,
mm,
and not just sitting in an office all day doing CAD monkey work that's in an air
yeah.
conditioning? What if we actually grab a hammer and go outside and actually start constructing things, and we can be through an AI, we can, be generating these ideas, we could be getting the drawings and all. I mean, obviously you still need to get permits and whatnot, and there's a lot of legality around that, but
I
I can,
think, yeah, I agree with you in terms of like, especially as it pertains to this, like design in general. Like, can I see my design sort of come to life faster? And can people interact with it in different ways? The, like, I think construction people have, or construction has eroded into design more than design has eroded into construction.
oh yeah, oh sure.
Yeah, you've got a lot of construction companies sort of going into the design build, you
Right.
know, and doing it that way. And I just wonder, as tools become more accessible, like, is there going to be a super company that just does it all? And is that even legal right now?
hmm
I know, yeah, I know in places like North Carolina, the ownership of the company has to be, I think, 45% architect, licensed architect, and the company itself has to be a licensed under, I believe the NCARB or something like this. And so I don't even know if structurally that's possible in some
Mm.
place,
Mhm.
but it just seems like what's going to happen because like every profession keeps kind of eroding into the next one because of enterprise opportunity,
Right.
uh, and they want to make the most money out of a deal.
Right. Are you saying like an Amazon of of building, of design and building kind of a thing? Is that what you were
Yeah,
talking about, or like
I
what are
can
you
see it.
saying? Mhm.
I can see a behemoth of a company just like taking over just like construction and design, like
Mm.
A&E, and just being that. And, of course, AECOM is a huge architectural and engineering company traded on the, publicly,
Right.
and,
Yeah, they're global.
global, you've got all that. But the question becomes like, can they just become a construction company too? Like, I don't think from a business structure standpoint, like I said, I don't know that it's legal. I've never looked, so I'm
Right.
just off like,
Right. Sure.
like,
But also, I would say lots of things, especially if you are going to be a behemoth, laws change. You know, when Uber started or Airbnb, even, there were actually different rules on the books, that were totally disrupted, or even like
yeah,
what people are doing, like what maybe Waymo or Tesla's doing right now in the self driving car space. It's like, hey, they might actually completely disrupt automobiles in general.
yeah,
And right now, it's not legal, but
right,
they're working with regulators, they're working with lawmakers, they're carving out their own path and they're going to
yeah,
make it legal. So if there's enough power behind it, I mean,
yeah.
what's
Well,
legal mean? It's like change
yeah,
it.
and it's funny because like I think about what really affects the largest amount of people, and like I think about the built environment. Like everyone interacts with a building in some certain way, shape, or form.
Sure.
From a market opportunity standpoint, like it is the biggest opportunity there is. Like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with this industry. I love it. It's all I think about. But also, there's certain things that I'm just like, man, like I wish that would change,
Yeah.
you know. But there's always pros and cons of every and consequences of every decision. So, like, if that was to happen, okay, what does that happen? What happens on the other side?
Right.
Uh,
I
so
like you. You're a big thinker, man. Like, and I mean, but I guess also you're an entrepreneur, so of course you're a big thinker too. Too, because that's a really fascinating, just like whole concept too, and I can absolutely see that as well. And then if if AI was to get to a point of being a designer or an architect, more of an architect, everything it spits out meets code.
yeah, right.
It's
Because it can
like
have numbers and code and
it knows it
like
all, so it won't even give you something that doesn't meet the code. So it's like,
right.
well, then that's it. I mean, it's like, it's like, give me 5 design options, but not only the design options, give me all the way down to the construction documents. Like, I want exactly how that's built, that meets specifications, and maybe make it 30% safer
Right.
or so, and it will just do that. And cool. So, I mean, there, even for the regulation, it's like maybe, I don't know, then maybe even at the city level, what if they just automate it and it's like you click a button, submit my AI design, the city just immediately approves it. Great, let's build. Like,
It's gonna be the code. Like, but of course
yeah.
you have someone to, look at it or whatever. But you know what I think about, man? Can an architect right now design like one of these historic buildings? Like, you know
No.
what I mean? I don't think I,
No
I
way.
don't
Mm-mm. Yeah, I would love to go back to a craftsman, like, get back to human-centered craft design and build.
but can a robot do that though? Probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
absolutely. I don't know if you've seen that meme, and it's like, how's it go? It's something along the lines of like, um, it's a photo of like a beautiful. medieval town in Europe, that was built in the 1500s and has these walkable streets and some great, people on the street dining and great landscape. And it's just like this beautiful place. And it was like, this was designed by illiterates. And then it
Yeah.
shows like this very
Yeah.
modernist, brutalist building from like the 70s. And it was like, this was designed by a PhD.
Yeah.
It's like, which one would you actually rather live in? And it's like, actually, the illiterates did better. It's like, what's up with that? That's where everyone vacations.
Yeah.
Nobody vacations to a brutalist building. I've never heard of
Right.
that. Only an architect would do that, actually, because they can just tell their friends, oh, I know so much about this building. But other
Yeah.
than that, like, people are going to Italy all the time. They're going to Portugal all the time.
All the time. No, it's really interesting stuff. Like when you really sit down and think about it, it's like, okay, something is going to change. It's just when and how. Like what's going to happen? What are the consequences? How is it going to affect me?
Right.
That's um but I do want to bring back the thought that okay, creative people I think are going to thrive in the age of AI or in our new reality, I call it. I think creative people are really, really going to thrive because people can who can think in networks and leverage artificial intelligence in a way to get certain outcomes or results are going to do very, very well. And I think those thinkers are typically the people who decide to choose architecture. So I
Yeah.
don't think people should be scared of like, okay, like, I'm done for, I'm obsolete. I think we need those types of thinkers to actually take over our built environment because if not, you know, we're in trouble because the like real estate developers are going to pick up that job to save
Hmm.
money.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
has to be some intervention in terms of people learning how to use these tools and learning how to leverage this technology to get outcomes and to maximize good design rather than just maximize, profitability and things like this.
Although, I mean, we're always going to be maximizing profitability. Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day, maybe unfortunately for some, unfortunate for maybe for others. I don't know. However you stand on it, but I mean, geez, like that one's going to be a hell of a culture shift. You know,
Oh yeah.
especially for Americans to get beyond. But there I lived in Austin for a few years, and there was this. It was Zilker Brewery, and it's like it was my brewery down the street on E6th, and I would always hang out there. And they had a parking lot that was turned into just like a beer garden, basically, like picnic tables out there. Which I was thinking, like they spent $5,000 in picnic tables. It's picnic tables, like they're blocks of wood, and then they built a little fence. It's like okay, another 5 grand, and then they had like some shading devices, and it's like okay, a total thing. Let's just say like $20,000 they invested into this outdoor space, and every day 5 p.m. After work, packed like the lines out the door to grab a beer, and it's like everyone loved that space. And then across the street was this brand new development building, like 5 stories tall, 100 million bucks maybe. And they had like the corner, which was a restaurant that also served beer. Same beer, beer's beer, it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't come from the brewery, but a beer is a beer, empty, ghost town. And it was always like to me, like, isn't that fascinating that a parking lot plus $20,000 is more enjoyable of a space than the $100 million in all of this design work and teams and everything that went into that. It's like, are we doing it wrong? you know, it's even back to the illiterate thing. It was like the owner of the brewery could be illiterate. Like they could know nothing about design, basically. Maybe not illiterate. Okay, that's too far. But you know what I mean? Like they're not a trained professional in space making, but they
Right.
happen to make a great space.
Yeah. And maybe because they understood people a little bit more or
Yeah.
understood that thing more than, the people across the street. Like they understood beer more or they understand bringing people together. I don't know.
Just bringing people together. Cool. Because that's really all people are looking for after work.
Yeah.
They kind of want to just be outside and have a
Right.
beer with their friends. It's really all they're looking for. Just give us that space and we're happy. Like it's all good. You don't need to like have all the fancy light fixtures even. Like I understand. there's a place for those spaces as well. I'm not against luxurious design. I'm into
Yeah.
that. A lot of my clients do that too. I'm into it. But also sometimes just the backyard feel and doing it for cheap brings people together and builds culture. Which, hey, that's the old fashioned way. That's
Right.
how people have done it for thousands of years too.
And so it's also human nature. That's what we want. We want to be able to look at other people. And like that's why I talked about, earlier, designers, the things that they understand, right? Like we studied this in school, eyes on the street, and there's certain reasons you do certain things. Like the guys who created that beer community center, whatever,
It was
they,
brewery. Yeah, the parking
yeah,
lot of the brewery. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The guys who created that brewery probably did some of those things on accident.
Hmm.
Not even knowing that, okay, these are like design principles that are proven over, hundreds of years to work. And then the experts on the other side of the street missed a lot of the principles and like the basics of design and placemaking.
Right.
And so, we see it. I always tell this story about this basketball court in my neighborhood. I grew up in Indianapolis on 34th and Moeller. Anyone from Indianapolis knows exactly where that is. It is not the nicest. You probably don't want to be out there after 8 p.m. But it was where we were from. It's
Sure.
community.
Yeah, that's right.
We had a basketball court called, or a park called Gustafson Park, and they had like a basketball court back there and everything. And I mean, you go there on a Sunday, packed, bro. Like you would have to get there by like 2 p.m. or you were not getting on the court. You were not going to play at all. You're just going to be watching the whole time because people had teams, they were booked out. Like, and the court was literally like old rustic, like it was so crazy. It looked crazy. The net was like hanging off and stuff. And like people loved it there, even though the net didn't even go swoosh. Like when you wasn't,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. But it's not important.
Yeah, it wasn't important to people.
Mm-mm.
And they came in and changed the basketball courts. They painted everything. They did
Mm.
all the stuff,
Mhm.
upgrade that park. After that, no one went there.
Wow.
After that, no one went there.
Wow. Wow. It's like we try too hard or something
Yeah.
too. Like, yeah, what is the why? What is we?
What do they want, right? We didn't want that. We wanted what we had, And so, like, there was a reason that was the place that we want to go to. And then the other piece of it is like, do I even feel like I am supposed to be here anymore?
Mm.
Like people go to places they resonate with, right? And they can bring other people to and they feel comfortable. And like that's where people gather, is where they feel comfortable. And once you change something completely, and keep in mind this is like a middle to low income neighborhood, you go in there and everything's shiny, you're like, man, like, inherently you're like, yo, like I don't know that this is mine anymore. Like is
Right.
someone else coming here to use it? And then like, do I even,
And
right?
also, who did this?
Who did it?
It
Right?
wasn't. It wasn't one of our community members. It wasn't
Yeah.
somebody. We weren't. We didn't. As a. It wasn't like everyone that's playing the teams and like is playing basketball. It's like, you know what, we can like adjust this thing over here to make this experience better. It was like some outsider that nobody's ever met or talked to just told you now, oh, this is how it's going to be, and you're like,
It
this
doesn't
is our
feel
culture. What the heck? Like, why would you do that to me?
It doesn't feel like yours. And it's funny you say that because we used to actually go in together and put a new net on the court and
Yeah.
stuff like, and it would break, tear up, and we would put another one on there. And like you would know when people did things, like just to your point. But with this, it's just like a complete overhaul, and then you come there and you're like, this is not mine anymore. And you
Right.
just stop.
Yeah, that's right. And uh, I mean, hey, it mhm. um, I mentioned Daniel Woodfin from Ball State, one of my professors there, and his big philosophy came from Christopher Alexander, which is the timeless way of building in a pattern language. And I believe he says in the timeless way of building, he has the example of the American barn. If I say American barn, if you don't mind me asking, what pops into your head? Like if you were going to sketch that out, how would you draw an American barn? Um, I'm actually curious. Could you
Yeah,
answer that?
yeah, sure. So I would draw probably this like, this. this arc over the top that came to a point, and then I would draw. So and it'd be a little chunkier, right? And I'll draw some barn doors on
And then
it
what
that
color would it be?
like a red
It'll be
burgundy.
red, right? Exactly. You just exactly, even in the book that he
Yeah,
even says,
right.
when you ask somebody, that's what they see. You know,
Yeah.
they see that exact structure and it's painted red. It's got the big doors. And then he goes, who built that?
Mm.
And it was not made by architects. It was made by farmers needing that space. You know, it's shaped that certain way because they have to build that structure a certain way so it stands, and they're under a certain budget. And then they're going to have the barn doors because they've got these large animals or tractors that are coming in and out, and they just need those. It might be painted red. I might be wrong on this one, but it's like, so you can see it from a distance, you know exactly where it's at in its place, or maybe for the animals, or, you know, I actually don't know the reason why it's red, but it's a functional reason why it's red, you know, and that might be more iconic than Corbusier. Because if I was to ask somebody on the street, you know, describe Corbusier's plan domino, they would be like, I
What
don't
is
know French. What are you talking
it?
about? You
Yeah.
know? You know, but it's like, but from us as architects, you know, with our PhDs, we're like, oh, Corbusier is the best. It's influential. It's, you know, it's this and that. And it's like, well, does anybody actually, do normal people actually resonate with that? And it's like, or do we just resonate it with it in our fancy classrooms and like, you know, amongst each other
Yeah.
or something?
And that's what I would say a lot back then is like a lot of times designers design for designers and not for people. And that is the downfall of our profession. Um,
So then, of
yeah,
course, we're going to be replaced by AI.
yeah, I'm basically
It's like, well, if already we're doing it wrong, say, you know, it's like if already we're missing the mark, then you're going to get eaten
yeah.
alive.
Well, for so long, like architecture and design has been based on pride and intelligence. But like if something comes along that's much more intelligent than you are or that you'll ever be when it comes to this thing, the creativity won't go away, of course. And that's why I said I think, all designers should become a little more humble and lean in on that creativity. Because, and I wouldn't even call it humility. I would just call it more curious and more have the have more ability to sort of move around and be agile and just be more nimble in thought.
Or drop the ego, you know,
Drop the
too.
ego.
Because yeah, it's like, who are you designing for? You know, think
Yeah.
more about your user and the environment and the culture and the neighborhood
Well, people
than
do.
you presenting and looking smart or
Right.
something, you know, or doing something that is just going to be like, you know, yeah, that would be admired by your fellow intellectuals.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah, people say they do, all the time. They're like, yeah, we're designing for people, but it's like, really, like, are we really?
yeah, are you? That's
You
right.
know, and that's the part again that frustrates me. But whenever, whenever a field, whenever a field is like ripe for innovation like that, it always typically goes bad before it gets really, really good. Um, and so yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely here for the ride. Like we're gonna certainly be working with architects through our process and
Right.
working with developers as well. So it's like we're kind of in the middle, but like, we'll see what happens. I'm very curious to see what happens over the course of this next 5 years.
You know, it's funny. We're both visualizers, but here we are just talking about architecture too. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we are architects, you know, at the end of
Yeah,
the day, you
in a
know.
way.
hmm
Yeah, we're designers. Absolutely. We certainly are designers. And I think that's what's going to happen is like things are going to generalize more to just to design. And again, understanding design principles for whatever you're designing for will help our world become, a better design place and a better place to experience.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and I don't know. This just kind of popped in my head. Another little sidetrack, but you know, it's like, and this is just like my personal tangent. But like Apple these days, Apple Computer, I feel like is missing the mark a lot, and I think they stopped building for their customers. Where, you know, during the Jobs era, he was always very adamant on the user. and build for the
Yes.
user, build for your customer. And we want to build great products for people. They were very in tune with their users. And you can tell that. And that's why everyone loved Apple, because it was like, Apple loves us. They're
Yeah.
building for us. They love us, so we love them. And it's a great, friendly relationship. And it,
Yeah.
puts them on this trajectory to be, richer than nations.
Yeah.
And, I do feel these days, and I even kind of get this from like the Apple, I've always been involved in like the Apple fanboy scene, on the internet, the forums and whatnot. But like a lot of people are even kind of turning against them now, and they might not even be able to like vocalize it or so. They just know something's wrong. But to me, it's like, well, they actually stopped caring about us. They
Mhm.
stopped designing for us. They're just designing to design. Or sometimes I feel like on their new operating system, like they just changed like the mail app, the photos app, and everyone's like, why'd they do that? And it's like, well, that's because some project manager did that
Yeah.
to get a raise. They weren't
Right.
caring about a better user experience. They just were looking out for themselves, and they pitched that
Right.
in a meeting. They went with it. They got the, it's like they lost the craft, they
Yeah.
lost that touch, and people resonate to that. People can tell, I think,
Yeah.
very quickly when you stop designing for them. So,
Yeah. Well, I can say, man, I'm a big fan of Jobs, and I agree with you. I agree with you. I think, man, what he built, the spirit of it was so strong that it's lasting till today. Um, but you're right. I think things are turning in another direction, especially as innovation continues. Um, he had this almost spiritual, like esoteric, like sort of understanding about design, and people. And I mean, he would go out into Asia and, do all types of transcendent meditation and, like really get to the core of spirituality, which a lot of people didn't know. And like I said, he had this almost like monk-like sort of mentality towards what he was building and towards people. And first of all, I mean, obviously Tim Cook just doesn't seem to have that. I think,
right.
Jobs taught him as much as he could and he absorbed as much as he could. But, you know, power changed hands. Like, that's a guy at the top of the food chain there at Apple. And I think you're right about caring about people, but like I said, Jobs cared so much about getting that result, that people would actually use, that he believed deeply that he understood what people needed more than they did. And like that is interesting to me because it almost seems arrogant, but
Right.
then like, there was this aggressive pursuit to like really, really get that feedback as well. And then, like you said, decisions that are made, right, from feature to feature, from like whatever it is, like you have somebody, if you go from someone who has like a deep understanding, a spiritual understanding about like what we need to do next, right? And it's not going anywhere without me approving it, like that creates a different outcome, right? I mean,
Yeah, I've heard
we
somebody
talk
say where it's
about
like in
yeah,
companies, dictatorships rule, in societies, democracy rules, or something. It's like you
yeah,
actually can't have a democracy in some
right.
companies. You
Yeah,
kind of need a dictator.
you need the guy to be like, yeah, we're doing this.
That's right. Hey, I'm just gonna pause real quick. My phone is about to run out of battery because
Okay,
I've
no,
FaceTime for so long. And how are we doing on time too? I wonder.
it's four right now.
For you, so we're like
Oh yeah,
halfway through. We're cool, right?
yeah, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Or are we beyond? I forget.
Yeah, it's four for me. I probably got another 15 or so,
Okay,
or
okay, so we can kind of wind down. All right, very cool.
they're good.
All right, but just to kind of hop back into there, I what's so fascinating on that is like, you know, maybe I pulled you into this a little bit, but it's like we are kind of like, you know, saying negative things towards architects with like the PhDs say, and oftentimes it's like because they're designing for like almost themselves, so they're trying to do it, just for to win an award or something, and it's like to me that's an ego thing, and
Mhm.
where something back to that barn, that's ego less because the farmer is just doing pure function. It's just doing like what they need to do to get things done. But then when you think about somebody like Steve Jobs, he had the biggest ego of anyone.
Yeah,
Yet
right.
yet he was able to though
Okay,
also understand people and
right.
design for people and build things that people really did love. And so it's like that then makes me question, and I want to, like that's the question. And then I have is like, well, then what is it? Is it like, do do you take the ego approach then, or do you take the human centered approach? Or maybe the answer is really combining the two. It's in that middle. It's in the center between those two or something. Or I don't know. What do you think on that? Or
Well, I think he knew something. Again, I think he really did know something that we didn't know at the time that was possible. So that's a superpower. With that, you know, his ego was, I believe, a frustration to him, um, that people did not see what he saw,
I
and
see.
we're not able to catch up.
Right. We just don't understand.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Hmm.
right? I know this is the thing. I know what you guys want. I know this stuff
Right.
is right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So he wasn't doing it because he wasn't doing it just for the sake that he had the idea. He was doing it and being harsh on it because he believed so strongly that it is the best answer for people. And that just made everyone then assume it's like a high ego thing. But he's just being like, no, it's actually just the best answer.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, literally. And so I think it was an aggressive pursuit to find the best answer, and he was tied deeply into that and invested deeply into that. Um, Whereas on the flip side, I don't know if it's about the answer. I think it's more about the ego than the answer. And I might be wrong. I think everyone has good intentions. I like to think that I'm more of an optimist. I like to
Yeah.
think everyone does their work to, to have a net positive impact on society.
Right.
Um, Steve Jobs was quite literally a genius. Um, and so there was a reason why he was right, because he spent a lot of time with that thing and he really understood some things. Um, and he was able to prove to himself quite a few times that this was going to work out, and it did, until he passed, of course. Um, but I think to sort of tie it into what we were talking about earlier about architecture and just like the profession in itself, I think we just need to be more cognizant of the tools that we have in our toolkit, what we think the future is. Because here's what realistically happens, right? You get out of school with your eyes huge, right? Your eyes are big. You're thinking, I'm gonna go out and be a star architect, right? I'm gonna be the next Frank Lloyd Wright. Like, I'm gonna go into this field and crush it. And then someone puts you into Revit in a cubicle or at home, and you're literally working on door schedules all day. And then you realize, like, and then at some point you sort of put your head up and you go, is this what I want to do all my life? So you decide to do one of two things. You decide to climb the ladder, which is very possible because people are going to need people who manage the people who do door schedules, or to manage the people who manage the people who do the door schedules, or and then to talk to the client. Um, and so it is very possible to do that, but you just kind of weigh the cost. You say, do I want to do that or not? And then guess what? You got to start making money, right? You start getting a
If you
family,
want a family, yeah, sure.
start, you start having some fun and trying to, you got to start making money. And you're looking at all your other colleagues that studied finance and, they studied business or whatever they studied, and they're getting these jobs on Wall Street and stuff like this. And you're like, okay, they're making money. What am I doing? And so that dilemma starts, and then you start thinking about money. And of course, in any profession, there is a profitability aspect to it. Like you have to, you got to earn, right? And so I think the ego. and the power as you start to ascend, if you do ascend, is headed more towards that, right? Is like being, because again, the only way to earn there's several ways to earn money, of course, in architecture, but the barrier to entry for them, and I mean to earn some serious money, like anything over $100,000 or anything remotely close to $100,000. There's a few ways, like own your own firm, right? Do a lot of really sketchy work, like jails and stuff like that. You'll make money, you know, or be a very well-known architect with a lot of connections, right?
Which also takes a lot of time, I would
Takes a
say
lot.
there, especially in the architecture world. I mean, you might work on just one project in a few years or something like and then how are you going to convince the next client and whatnot? So that can take time.
You might be 60 before you get there. Literally. It's like just
Yeah,
being laying.
sure.
And so it becomes about earning, and then it becomes about either being the hero on the job, which again, none of those things have anything to do with like people-centric design.
Right.
And I think the field is actually just designed for that, sadly. I don't think it's people's
Right.
fault.
Well, I mean, hey, you could say the same thing. Somebody might get into being a doctor because they really care about people. And then down the line that they realize that, they're just trying to make a lot of money off the insurance companies because they have to feed their family. And, they
Yeah,
might,
but like to become a doctor, you actually have to not kill people. Like you have to you have to become really good at like
right,
making people feel better. So you actually
right.
have to be, same thing with tech. Like we're both building tech companies right now.
Sure.
You wouldn't have raised a penny, I wouldn't have raised a penny, or we wouldn't have customers if we didn't care deeply. Like we have to care.
Right,
It's tied in with us making money.
right.
Like we have to care about that. And the more we care, the more money we make. Interestingly enough.
Yes, and and especially, yeah, I mean, yeah, especially if you have a platform like we're both building. Yeah, if you're not listening to your users and caring about them and designing for
Yeah,
them, nobody comes. Like
it's very brutal.
they definitely leave. That's right. Yeah, you absolutely have to be doing it for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. And yeah, that's funny. I almost like do that more in working on tech than working in architecture at times too. Isn't that a weird thing? Mhm.
Yeah.
Hey man, well, this has been a blast. Like, um,
No,
I yeah, this has been a lot of fun today. I'm glad we did this, and thanks for hopping on. And
of course.
maybe we could do this again sometime soon
Absolutely.
or so too. And even if we're not doing it with the record button, we just need to hang out more and
Yeah.
whatnot because yeah, it still blows my mind how similar of paths we have. It's so rare for people to
It
be
is.
here, but we went to the same school and we have the same name. It's just like, what is going on? It's like,
We have the
what are the
same
actual odds of that? Like,
name. I
doesn't make
wonder if,
sense.
when's your birthday?
February.
Okay, my birthday's in December.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah,
not the same person.
yeah.
Just yeah, just different places. But
That's
no,
right.
it's funny. The first conversation we had, I almost want to say we're like we should do some type of podcast one day because it was just like it went all the way there,
Yeah,
like
I
on
think
the
we ended up talking for an hour exactly or
yeah.
something. I think in that time too, we even got to religion, which is like, oh, geez, we're even aligned here. Like, oh God. Okay, which we didn't get into this time, which,
Right.
maybe in the future. But because I actually do think that is,
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
it's a big part of it. Yeah, exactly. If you make it a big part of it, it absolutely is. Yeah, but hey, that's definitely, let's not get too controversial on the first episode.
Yeah,
So,
we'll get to that.
well,
We'll get to
cool,
that.
man. Great. Hey, yeah, thanks again. And I'll give me a few days. I'll edit, and I'm planning on YouTube, Instagram, or something. I don't know. I'll split it up. I'm kind of new to this though too, so we'll just see like where it goes. But
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great, man. Appreciate you. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to it.
Cheers. All right. All right. Talk soon.
Peace.